Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Monica Gwu and I upload swimsuit and lifestyle content on this channel. In today's video, I'm going to teach you all how to draft a basic bodice pattern. So the things you need is your paper. It can either be brown or white. You need your ruler, your curve ruler, and this type of ruler. You need your pattern scissors to cut the pattern out. So these are the measurements you'll be working with for this basic bodice pattern. So the first thing you want to do is to mark out a starting line like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out the length of my top, and I want it to be 26 inches. So I'm going to rule out the line like this. So the first thing you want to do is to mark out your shoulder measurement. Your shoulder is to be divided by 2. Mine is 15. So I'm going to divide it by 2 and that will give me 7.5. So I'm going to mark it out like this. So this area is going to serve as the neckline, and the standard neckline is 3 by 3 inches. So I'm going to measure out 3 inches here and 3 inches here. Then I'm going to take use of my curve ruler to curve the neckline like this. So from this starting point, I'm just going to mark out my bust point. My bust point is 10 inches, and I'm going to mark out my waistline. My waistline is 16.5. Then I'll mark my hip line. My hip line will be, I'll just make use of 26 in total. Then I'm going to rule out horizontal lines across it like this. Please note that when you want to cut this, you should cut it on fold. I'm just using a single paper to explain to you, but when you want to fold yours, you should be on fold. This is the bust point, this is the waistline, and this is my hip line versus my top length. Do we understand to this extent? Please note that I would have added extra inches for the length of the top, but my paper is not enough, so I'm stopping at directly on my hip line. So from this shoulder point, I'm going to come out by ½ inch like this. Then I'll take my ruler and slant it to this neckline area. Please just watch me carefully as I work on this thing. So from this point, I'm just going to mark out my arm round, and my arm round is 8.5. So I'm just going to mark it here. Then I'll connect it this way. So I'll just extend it like this. So you can see this is the neckline, this is the shoulder slope, this is the armhole line, this is my bust point, my waistline, and my hip line. So the next thing we want to do is to measure what you have on your hip, on your arm round, and what I have here is 8.5. So I'm going to divide it like into 2. You can see the way I did it. This is 8.5, so I will just divide it into 2 with my tape rule, and this is what I have. So I'm going to mark it out like this. This is the midpoint, right? So I'm going to come down by 0.75 inches. 0.75. This is 0.75 on the tape rule. You can see before the 1 inches, this is what it looks like. So you are going to take your curve ruler and place it on the pattern like this. You see the way I held my curve ruler? I'll place it like this. I'll make sure it is well aligned. Next thing I'll do is just to trace it out. So after tracing it out, you should have something like this. So the next thing you want to do is to mark out your body measurement. So my bust is 40 divided by 4 Please note that your body measurement should be divided by 4. So mine is 40 divided by 4, that will give me 10 inches. So I'm going to mark it here. I will mark out my waist measurement too, divided by 4. I'll do the same thing on my hip line. I'm also going to divide my hip divided by 4. So this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take my ruler to connect the lines. So this is what you should have. So the next thing we want to do is to mark out our dart. So for the dart, you are going to measure out your nipple to nipple measurement. My nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. So I'm going to divide it by 2. And that will give me 4 inches. So from the bust point like this, I'm just going to mark out my 4 inches like this. So I'm going to take my ruler and connect the points together like this. So from the bust point here, I'm just going to come down by 1 inch like this. The waistline too, I'm going to come up by 2 inches. Please note 2 inches, and I'm going to mark the point like this. Normally we take the dart on the waistline. So on the waistline like this, I'm just going to mark out ½ inch like this and ½ inch here. So you're going to mark ½ inch here and ½ inch here. So you take your ruler, you place it this way on the pattern, you connect the lines like this. I'm going to do the same thing on this side too. You should have something like this. So from this point again, I am going to connect it to this point. Remember, we came up by 2 inches on the waistline. So after marking out the dart, you want the basic bodice pattern to have a nice shape. So on this hip line here, I'm just going to mark out 1 inches like this. I'll mark out 1 inch, and I'm going to use my curvy ruler. So I'm just going to slant it like this. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is to mark out your allowance. So I'll be using 1 inch allowance. You can use more, but I'll be using 1 inch for this pattern. So on this waistline, remember I already took out my dart with 1 inch. So I'm just going to add extra 1 inch on the waist allowance. So that means I'm going to use 2 inches for this part. Then on the waistline too, I'll mark out my 1 inch. Then I'll connect the points together. So this is what you should have for the allowance. So this curvy area, I'm just going to connect it to the allowance area like this. So before we cut it out, please, I want you to take note that when you want to cut it out, you should add extra ½ inch allowance on the neckline, the shoulder slope, and on the arm all round. So I'm going to use a different marker to do it so you can understand. So I'm just going to mark out 0.5 inches, that's ½ inch, like this. So you can see I already marked out my ½ inch allowance at all the sides like this. So I'm going to use my curve ruler to just trace it out. For sure, baby, come. So you can see this is what it looks like after I've already added the ½ inch round. You can see. So let's proceed to the back pattern. So to drag the back pattern, the first thing we want to do is to mark out our starting line like this. It is very important to have a starting line. So the next thing you want to do is to mark out the length of your top. Next thing I want to do is to mark out my zip allowance, and the standard measurement for the zip allowance is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark out 1.5 inches like this to the length of my bodice. So I'm going to take my ruler, then I will connect the lines together. So this is the zip allowance. So now the next thing we want to do is to mark out your bust point, you mark out your waistline, then your hip line, then your top length measurement. Please note that mine is stopping at my hip line because I don't have extra paper. So make sure you had allowance, because you need to add allowance, like at least extra 2 inches allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do is to rule out the vertical lines like this. So on this starting point, I'm going to mark out my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 15 divided by 2. That will give me 7.5. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out the neckline for the back pattern. And it is usually 3 by 1.5 or 3 by 1 inches. I'll be making use of 3 by 1.5. So I'll just take my curve ruler like this and curve it out. On this point here, I'm going to come out by ½ inch like this. Then I'm going to slant it to this point for my shoulder slope, because our shoulder is not straight. The next thing you want to do is to mark out your arm round, and mine is 8.5. So I'm going to connect it like this. Then I will extend the line this way. For the arm round, I'm going to divide it by 2. I'll find the midpoint, and this is what I have after dividing it. So I'm going to mark it out like this. So on the front pattern, this is the front pattern. I came down by 0.75 inches. But for the back pattern, I'm going to come down by 0.5 inches. So I'll come down by 0.5 inches. So I'm going to take my curvy ruler like this. Then I'll place it on it like this. I'll make sure it is well aligned. Then I'll curve it out. So the next thing I want to do is to mark out my body measurements like I did for the front pattern. So I'm just marking out my bust point divided by 4. I'm doing the same thing on this line. Remember, this is my bust point, this is my waistline, and this is my hip line versus my top length. I'm going to mark out my waist measurement divided by 4. I'm going to also mark out my hip measurement divided by 4. Then I'll just connect the lines together. Next thing I want to do is to mark out my darts. I'm going to mark out my nipple to nipple measurements like we did for the front pattern. So I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement this way. And I'll mark it too on this line. So I'm going to take my ruler. Then I would connect the point like this. So you don't want your darts to stand directly from your bust point. That is why you should come down by 1 inch on the bust point. Please note 1 inch. Then for the hip line, you are coming up by 2 inches here, and you mark out the point like this. So usually we take the dart on the waist line. So you are going to come up by ½ inch and ½ inch like this. So all you need to do is to take your ruler. This is very important. Then you place it on your pattern like this. Then you slant it. Then you connect it to this point too. So you do the same thing for the second side too. So I'll connect it like this. So the next thing I want to do is to input my allowance. Use 1 inch like I did for the front pattern, like this. But on the waistline, I'm going to use 2 inches because I have to return back this 1 inch that I took here. Then on the apron, I'm going to use 1 inch. If you are sewing a ready-made cloth, like clothes with crepe, you can use 1 inch. But if you are sewing something like Ankara down, any cloth that will need lining, please make sure you use above 1.5 inches for the allowance. So the next thing you want to do is to connect this allowance together like this, so that it can have a very nice shape. On the hip line, I'm coming up by 1 inch so that it can have a nice shape. So I'm going to take my covering rule. I'm going to take my covering ruler like this, and I'm going to slant it to this point. So you should have something like this. So the next thing I want to do is to take out my zip bulge. So I have to take 1/2 inch here and return it on the waistline like this. This neckline measurement, I'm going to extend it to the zip allowance area like this, something like that. I'm going to take the zip bulge. So I'm going to take my ruler like this, then I'll slant it. It must be slant, please. I'll slant it to this point like this. Then from this point, so I'm going to slant it to the end of the bodice. Yeah, so this is the zip bulge. So like we did on the front pattern, you have to mark out 1/2 inch on the neckline, the shoulder slope, and on the arm round. So make sure you mark out 1/2 inch. So you can see I've already marked out the 1/2 inch allowance. So what I need to do is just to connect it with my curve ruler. Wanna bang on him, lele oh, yeah. Tobalo ko macho, yeah. Tobalo mako. This is what we have for the back pattern. This thing I'm going to do is to cut it out. This is the part I'm cutting. I'm following this blue line, then I'll follow this line, then like this. Call your attention to something. You might decide that you want your top to be crop. So all you need to do is just to start from this point and end it here. I have an illustration to show you. If you want your top to be short, all you need to do is just to start from your shoulder line to your waistline. So it will look like something like this. This is an example. Can you see? If you want it to be crop, you should stop here. Can you see it? But if you want your top to stop above your waist, your hip line, you know those kind of tops for bustier corset, this is the pattern you should use. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Share this video with your friends. Turn on your post notification bell so you can know anytime I upload a new video. See you in my next upload. Bye guys.